My name's Stuart Toplis. I'm a manager industry support within the tourism events branch within the Department of Jobs, Skills, Industry and Regions. Got to make sure I get that right. We're a branch that was established in about 2016 when the then government abolished Tourism Victoria and created Visit Victoria, as well as a small branch within the industry department known as the Tourism Events Branch. Very much the branch role is around particularly policy, strategy, and industry development advice on all matters to government industry around the visitor economy. The group includes, managing a number of state-run entities as well. I work within a particular area within the branch known as the Recovery and Reform area that has responsibilities of matters such as crisis response, visitor servicing, destination planning, reform of regional tourism boards in Victoria, for example. And one of the key projects that's coming out of this particular area is the development of the state visitor economy master plan. And we're hoping that shortly that the plan known as the Experience Victoria 2023 will be launched, and that will provide particularly this is the blueprint particularly for industry investors and government and other industry stakeholders to particularly guide investment in the visitor economy over the next 10 years with really quite a strong focus on 5 key product areas, priorities. First, people's-led experiences, wellness, arts, culture, food and drink, and nature, which I'll touch on a bit further through this interview. The strategy outlines 7 guiding principles which inform the decision making, including, and most importantly, in terms of today's discussions around sustainable and regenerative as being one of the key guiding principles for the strategic plan. Sure, if I could probably frame my response in the context of tourism and sustainable tourism, which is the area I know very well. In fact, I commenced my sustainable tourism journey nearly 30 years ago when sustainability was still very much a fringe issue, particularly in the tourism sector. In fact, when I was at uni, it warranted a fleeting mention in a tourism planning and development lecture. But it was this particular lecture that I said, that sparked my particular career-long interest and advocacy in terms of sustainability in the tourism industry and the benefits it could bring both to the industry but the environment and community. For a bit of context, it was a time when the recipients of a national environmental tourism awards were operators of scenic flights over Antarctica flying over in 747s. They're going, I'm not sure if that's what I really perceive as sustainable, but that at that point in time, back in the 1990s, was an era where there's a lot still happening, and the industry still needed a lot of work to do in terms of how it embraced sustainability. Fortunately, also at that particular time, we had ecologically sustainable development being at the forefront of community discussion, and there was an ESD. There is an ESD principle of intergenerational equity that really resonated with myself, particularly from a tourism context. This concept of intergenerational equity that requires present generations to ensure the health, diversity, and productivity of the environment are maintained or enhanced for the benefit of future generations. And that really resonated with me, particularly how that would apply from a tourism perspective. I would love my kids, this is pre having children, for example, to have the same experience on holidays as I did as a child as well. I suppose for me, sustainability is more than just looking after the natural environment. It's very much also considering the social and environmental impacts of what we do as well. And the United Nations World Tourism Organization actually has a definition of sustainable tourism, which I think really hits the mark. And, it's tourism which meets the needs of the present tourists and host regions while protecting and enhancing the opportunity for the future. And I thought that, really, drills it down for me in terms of what sustainability means. Why is this important, particularly for the public sector? For sustainability is definitely critically important for the tourism industry, because unlike some other industries, um, we are dependent on the natural environment for the reasons why people visit the state, and obviously the flow on economic benefits. But research has consistently found that international and domestic visitors, the primary motivator for one of their primary motivators, particularly for visiting regional Victoria, is the natural environment. In fact, pre-COVID, a number of our international visitors, one of their main popular activities in regional Victoria was visiting national parks and bushwalking. So it's critical for the tourism industry, not only to ensure that it's operated in a sustainable manner, but there's also another element to this as well, as the green consumer. So there's then the broader consumer wanting to travel the world with minimizing their impact on the environment, and will avoid areas where they believe that there's degrading of the environment, etc., etc. So I think we've got that an element to play as well in terms of tourism. So it's this interdependence between the quality environment and um, tourism that puts tourism in that special position, and we need to make sure that that it's operating in a sustainable manner to achieve that outcome, because we've got climate change impacts, and tourism is probably one of the key industries. It's not only a generator of greenhouse gas emissions, particularly Australia, where we're reliant on long haul travel, aviation for tourism, but also the implications of climate change events like extreme weather events that impact, bushfires, the likes, which significantly impact the tourism industry. And that's a focus. A lot of my work is, we've got got that two-way relationship between tourism and climate change that we have to juggle. Post COVID, we're now having the research has shown that consumers are becoming even more discerning about their requirements and expectations of tourism destinations and individual tourism businesses, because they're seeking out this really authentic, enriching, sustainable, meaningful experience. And so in this context, I'm working closely with my colleagues in the recovery reform area around what's the contemporary understanding of sustainability beyond you know, um, ecological, environmental sustainability, but also embraces inclusiveness and other cultural and social components as well. Sustainability considerations have definitely influenced my work. I've been in a privileged, an ideal and a privileged position to lead and influence the development and implementation of a range of sustainability initiatives within, not only within the tourism events branch, but previously with Tourism Victoria and in other roles, and with the broader tourism industry. So I, I, I it's definitely front and center of a lot of my work. So I'm probably in a position where I could say yes, definitely. And this has ranged from working with colleagues around embedding sustainable criteria into event funding guidelines. If you're getting funding, you need to meet certain criteria that includes sustainability as well. Whether that's just being an event-wise event, for example, but and also then ensuring that sustainability is a cross-cutting theme across the categories of the Victorian and Australian Tourism Awards. So just having the ability to be able to influence that was probably extremely rewarding, and it helped, particularly that sustainability was a key part of my role. I've been in this privileged position, and I've been able to, you know, suppose, facilitate sustainability or encourage sustainability in the tourism industry wherever I can. And one of the key benefits of working on sustainability matters, as a lot of people that would agree, is that it provides us with that, ability to be able to combine both our professional and personal objectives. It's always great to combine them both. To me, that's probably, just the key thing that particularly drives me, not only from a professional perspective, but also that personal, to know that I'm hopefully making a difference. And this has either been through, the development of an Australian first sustainable tourism plan and its various actions when we're Tourism Victoria, or influencing industry stakeholders to embed sustainability into activities and programs. And that includes, our industry associations as well. And even, I suppose, from a climate change adaptation perspective, delivering an internationally recognized crisis management program, and then just, generally advocating for sustainable tourism wherever I can. That I hope I've, been able to facilitate positive outcomes, not only for tourism businesses, the broader tourism industry, and, critically important, the environment and local communities in which tourism occurs. There have been a number of challenges I've faced over the time, in terms of particularly encouraging others to embrace sustainability. Uh, that's not only just amongst work colleagues, but also the broader tourism industry. Probably the key one from a broader perspective is what I would call industry empathy, or industry denial. Maybe there's a word. There's a perception, particularly amongst, in this case, tourism businesses, that sustainability is one of those expensive, complicated ideals that, I can't afford to adopt these practices because it's just not, I can't afford it. But I think, where we've been able to overcome these issues is really focusing on, particularly around the communications around, the savings that can be achieved as a business operator, simply around, changing the light globes is an, classic example. It's just those simple changes in energy practice, low cost changes, that can bring about, quite substantial benefits for the business. And that's where we've been able to focus on, and in terms of some of our communications work. Another challenge I would say is, and I would find that other people across the public service that work in sustainability would find this as well, is that, when you're a dedicated role, to an extent, you become pigeonholed. You're the person responsible for sustainability, and that's your role, and everybody else, no, we've got all other things we do. So it's about ensuring that it doesn't become just one standalone, isolated matter, particularly whose role and responsibility it is. And the way we're addressing that at the moment is around, sharing with my colleagues across, particularly the reform and recovery area, you know, planning, industry development matters. We're sharing the load. In terms of sharing the load is probably the right word, not the right word, but, sharing the responsibility, so it doesn't end up being one person's role. Changes in government policy I have as a challenge, and it's probably, as public servants, our role is to implement policies of the government of the day. And, over the time, I found that, sustainability has not always been a policy priority, but, being able to still achieve outcomes, within, um, those particularly policy environments, to achieve sustainability outcomes wherever we can. In a tourism context, um, the industry and even consumers see sustainability as very much in what we call a niche market, like ecotourism, nature based. And that's a common misconceptions that we try to address, to say, no, sustainability means it's across the whole tourism industry, not just one little segment. Nature based tourism, it's about, our hotels and accommodation facilities in Metro Melbourne, for example, and what they're doing from a sustainability perspective, yet needing to look at how sustainability could be that cross-cutting theme across strategy and policy, which is great in the context of the soon to be released Experience Victoria plan, which, as I've previously mentioned, one of the guiding principles is definitely sustainable and regenerative. So we're now getting back into making sure that it's embedded across, particularly policy and strategy. I thought about this quite a lot in terms of what advice I would give to my other public servants around understanding and incorporating sustainability into their work. And for me, what I've found is that we can overcomplicate sustainability to a point where it becomes too difficult to work out exactly what we do. And I think we need to simplify it, and it you know and bring it down to a point where it can be some simple actions that we can achieve not only at home, for example, but also at work. And and I suppose I have a little comment that I was going to make in terms of overcomplicating, but also not necessarily mean making change in the sustainability space doesn't necessarily mean that all of us have to chain ourselves to a tree, even though that's probably that has a purpose in terms from an advocacy perspective, from environmental movement. But there's things that we can as simple as looking at a project we're working on at the moment, say, well, what would be the environmental or social or community impact of this particular project or piece of policy that you're working on, and then discussing with your colleagues ways in which these impacts could be mitigated. And I think it's not rocket science, all of this work, that we can essentially find solutions by talking it amongst ourselves. I think sustainability is better understood now than maybe when I first started working in this space 30 years ago, is that people have a greater understanding. And as I've explained previously, the concept of sustainability is evolving and becoming more, pardon the pun, more inclusive, and including other key elements that we deal with. If you do have that great sustainability idea, I had this great idea that wanted to get the first sustainability plan in tourism launched, and implemented. What was critically important in achieving that was making sure that I had the evidence to back up what I was trying to, the objective I was trying to achieve here. What's the evidence that I can present to decision makers around why we should be adopting sustainability, particularly in the tourism industry? And that very much came back down to green consumers, the importance of energy efficiency and the savings we can make in terms of the viability of tourism businesses, and those kind of those key bits of evidence that help us to present the case for change. So I think that probably sums up where I think my couple of pieces of wise words of wisdom for my public sector colleagues in terms of thinking about what they can do. Could I suggest and recommend that a bit of a reality check at the end? Also, some of these things take time. As I said, I've been working on this for a number of years, and sometimes you need that perseverance and the patience to be able to achieve long-term change. And I reflecting on, as much as I feel that there's a lot more could have been done, we're still a lot, with a lot of things have happened, particularly in the sustainable tourism space over the years, from a really positive perspective.